All right, guys. Terrence here from Neptune Systems, bringing you something completely new. I'm going to call it Control Freak Wednesdays, and this is our first time trying it out. So I hope all you guys out there in the Neptune world are going to check us out. If not, obviously live. We've got you guys who pick us up on the rewind, so to speak, on the replay through YouTube. But what I want to do with this new segment, this new every other week kind of show, is spend about a half an hour and feature one Control Freaks setup out there and what they're doing, how they're using their Apex, how they're using their Neptune Systems gear, and kind of get some insight from them. Now, the idea for this, the genesis of this idea was really at MACNA when we did the speed round, and we brought up people for 5-minute little presentations about something cool that they were able to do or some idea with their Apex that was super interesting to them. And it went so well that I said we need to share more. We need to use our Control Freak group more to help everybody else with these great ideas, because people have lots of equipment, they have lots of aquarium gear, and they kind of want to take it to the next level, and sometimes they just get a little bit stuck as to what to do next, and there's so many great ideas out there. So I put out the call yesterday. It was really a last-minute thing, and I think that this will not be the normal time slot. I did have some other engagement later on today that I couldn't do it at the time slot I want to. I think it will be probably at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on opposite weeks from Let's Talk Reef. So that'll be Wednesdays every other week, so we wouldn't do one next week, but we'll do one the week after next at 3:30 or 4. Check into Facebook, and you'll be able to see exactly when I'm going to do those. But I'm glad to see I've got a number of people joining me online here. Some of the usuals, like George Kiradakius, which I never get his name right. Todd White, who's coming in here from Toronto on YouTube. Good to see our YouTube stream is working again. I did find the glitch in that, so we're all up and running on YouTube and Facebook now. So anyway, there's no reason for me to talk anymore. I want to go ahead and bring on our guest for the first Control Freak Wednesdays, and that is Brian from Reef Co. Sorry, Brian. And Brian, did you drop off there? All right. Well, maybe we have technical difficulty there.
Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you just fine, but I'm not seeing you yet. So I don't know why we lost our feed, but we lost our Skype video feed from you.
Huh. So
that's on your end there, buddy. I have no video coming through. So you try to figure that one out. Anyway, we do have, while he's doing that, we're going to skip over so I can take a look at his dashboard. He's got a ton of stuff going on. There we go. There's Brian. The reason Brian didn't come up on the screen was because I probably called him Todd, because I was looking at Todd in the comments. But it's Brian Dunleavy from Reef Co out in New Jersey. What exact city are you in out there, Brian?
Hey guys, I'm Brian. I'm from Greenbrook, New Jersey, right in the middle, central New Jersey.
Okay. And Brian, you are the owner of Reef Co, is that correct?
Yep, Reef Co Aquariums. We've been doing service for about 9 years, and 2 years ago we opened up a retail location.
Excellent. Brian, get a little bit more in the center of the frame there so that we can see you, because we're in split screen. So the more center you are in the frame, the more you'll be there. You don't have to be so close into the screen, you just have to be in the middle of how you see the screen. But okay, so when we opened this up, like I said, it was kind of last minute. Did have a couple of people. Brian said, hey, I want to step up and show off what I've got going in the store. I've got really cool things. This is not a store, basically, presentation that we want to do every other week, but there will be stores, because some of them have some of the coolest, Control Freak setups that we want you guys to check out. So if you are a store out there and you do want to be featured on Control Freak Wednesday, that is possible. We'll try to mix it up and have stores, and obviously we'll have end users. But I'm hoping Brian has something amazing here for us to show us here today. Brian, what do you got, man?
So basically the whole store is run by the Apex. We have 5 different systems, and they're all connected with the Aquabus cables going daisy chained, I guess, from each either PM1 or EB832. We recently just upgraded all of the old energy bars to the EB832s. So yeah, all of the systems are run on that. We took all of our calcium reactors offline and switched to a dose and DDR combo. Since we're running the Trident, it makes it easier to be remote and control the alk and the calcium, where before we would notice a swing in the pH inside the calcium reactor and have to come, we would get an alert that high or too low, and we would have to come and manually adjust the regulator. And now with the Trident and with the dose, it's just awesome. We're able to control it remotely, just slightly bump it up or add a small amount of 2-part as needed. So that's my favorite thing about it so far.
So you've been running the what do you call it, the the advanced dosing control, basically the controlled dosing from the Trident, giving the data back. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, we're running that on one of the systems right now. So far, I think I have it pretty well dialed in. What I did actually was, I noticed the pattern with the Trident that at night, which many people have also noticed, at night it is not consuming nearly as much of the alkalinity. So before letting the Trident kind of take control of it, I kind of manually adjusted it based on that. Right. So,
yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great way for people to get warmed up into give the warm fuzzy, I guess, to what's going on with the Trident data that you're getting and adjusting some of the dosing and seeing the effects of what the dosing is. So then you can kind of hand it off, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, if you've got the ability, let's walk us around the store. Give us a tour.
Okay. Let's see. So let me try and spin this camera around. There you go. How's that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry, I'm going to try and get used to this. Spin it a little more.
Just so any of you guys know, this is pretty much how this particular show is going to go. It's going to be a lot of moving cameras around, showing people stuff. It's not going to be this highly polished and produced program. So anybody who wants to go on this, don't worry. You don't have to be a professional with your camera or your setup or anything, because people just want to see what it is you're doing. Now, Brian, it looks like some amazing corals there.
So yeah, the majority of the coral here we grow actually in the shop. I would say 95% of the coral is all aquacultured. So we have 5 different systems here. In the back where I just was, that's kind of like our farm area. So down here, all of our tanks are made by Planet Aquariums, and they're on steel stands, and we kind of have everything exposed so you could see what exactly it is that we do. So with that being said, it makes it a little bit harder to mount everything nice and clean, but our main interest is to make sure everything stays nice and dry. So we have everything kind of suspended up above. So it's not the neatest up there, but
yeah. Look, I want to say something to somebody. This is one thing to mention to people. Point back up there to your power supplies. So it's a really key thing to mount your power supplies. I know everybody wants to be really super neat, but keeping them a little bit separated, even though his look like they're kind of haphazardly placed, is really important for the longevity of the power supplies. Whether it be for you're running it for lights, or you're running it for our dose, for running it for our Core 20. You want to keep those power supplies cool, so not having them stacked on top of each other is important, and restraining all of your stuff and not having it sitting on the floor is absolutely the best way to go about. And if you notice here what he's done here, he's got everything mounted up underneath, so the chances of getting water dropping down into any of this stuff is very, very low. Would you say, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, if something was to happen to these tanks, if they were to crack, I mean, this is on 3/4-inch plywood here, so it will really just rain down. I mean, it'd be almost, I don't want to say impossible, but almost impossible for anything under here to get wet. You could see drip loop
right? I mean,
and everything. So yeah,
that's really the catastrophe that that happens when this. I mean, everything's. At that point, everything's bad. But what I'm talking about is a lot of times you see people have their gear mounted down low, or maybe it's not even mounted at all. super dangerous. So
Right.
the higher up you can get the equipment, so you don't have the casual splashes or when a hose pops off or ever is really important. So there you've got the dose, and you've got the DDR, and you've got a Trident there, and that's running that individual station.
So each of our systems is about 200 gallons. So this one is 200, that one is 200, 200, and then this one is, sorry, wrong way. This one is plumbed into what you guys saw in the back, the farm kind of area,
Right.
where we grow, a lot of frags, corals. So we got energy bars and everything under here too. Everything, like I said, is all kind of
let's take a look at one
mounted
of the
up.
dose that you had on the other side there. One of the first ones you showed us there underneath, and I want to look at those, those fittings, okay? Because you have obviously done some sort of a mod on those fittings over there, right?
Yeah. So I originally was just using this ice maker line from Home Depot, and it worked fine without these fittings. But what happened over time was, I guess, it kind of pushed off, and I was getting like air bubbles in there or a slight drip. Actually, this one I dripped right onto the Trident
Right.
for about a day until I
weird.
realized, and then. Yeah, on Amazon you can get this. You can get, I think it comes in a 10-pack of these fittings. So because we have 5 doses running right now, we needed to buy 2 of the 10 packs because each one takes 4 of the fittings. But yeah, once you have that, I mean, you could just click it on. And the reason why I didn't color code it or anything like that is I like the clear. Because if there is air or anything going through it, you can just look and you can see that there's air bubbles going into it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I love the color-coded stuff too, but I often in my setup, look in there to see, not only just when air, but when you're trying to like prime a line or whatever, it's actually going through the line and that everything's working the way it should. On those fittings, I personally have not used those. I know a lot of you control freaks out there use those particular fittings. I thought I saw something somewhere where you had to modify the little nipple and cut some of the nipple off to use them, or is that not true?
No, I didn't have to do that at all. It just threads right onto it.
And it doesn't fit, and it doesn't go down too far into it so to keep the tube from pushing on? Okay. No. I thought I heard somewhere from somebody that was the case, but
I did see online that people were saying you had to cut right here, cut the little nipple off. But I didn't find that to be the case.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, you could see it. Well, I don't know if you could see, but there's no air in any of the lines, and I've had it running like this now for a little bit of time. So I think one tip that I could suggest is push the connection in first and then thread it in.
Maybe that's the thing.
So
maybe that is the
so
the part
try.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what people are having issues with, but. Okay, that's really cool. I like what you've done there. And so each one of those Trident dose systems work for each one of the raceways that you have, and you're dosing calcium and alkalinity based on the Trident results, right?
Yeah, calcium and alkalinity. I've found that we never really had to use any magnesium or anything. I guess just doing water changes seems to keep up with it.
Where do you keep your values for the top 3?
The alkalinity I actually like in the 7s, like low to mid 7s. I get the best growth and color in the 7s. I guess that's mostly because our nutrients are pretty low. We actually have to manually dose nitrate and phosphate to the water, despite feeding pretty heavily.
Oh wow!
So yeah, we just add calcium nitrate to it.
Stump killer?
And that kind of helps bump it up. No, I don't like the stump remover just because you don't really know what's in it. I get from a planted website.
That's why I said it laughingly because when I read online the first time that somebody is going to Home Depot and buying stump killer and putting it in their aquarium, I was like, okay, that is that's an adventurous person that does that. I'm sure there's lots of people that have success, but I would just be kind of freaked out.
Yeah, that's the stuff I use. It's designed for planted tanks, and I think it's like lab grade, so you know exactly
Cool.
what's in it.
Good tip. Good tip. So, I saw over all those apexes, or sorry, all of those raceways that you have Radion lights over them. That's a lot of lights.
Yep.
I bet
Yeah.
you're probably not controlling those with the apex, right?
I'm not controlling them with the Apex. We actually had a lot of trouble getting them working here. I think because it's a lot of metal in the building, a lot of steel framing and steel beams and everything. There's actually a basement underneath here, so there was some sort of interference where I would have trouble connecting to all of them. So Ecotech actually came and did me a favor. They programmed them all to a different frequency, so I was able to get them to work on the Reef Link. But I think that's going to be a thing of the past now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely know that there's a lot of people who've had a ton of problems trying to get a lot of the Ecotech lights and pumps and stuff all working together in sync because of like Wi-Fi issues or whatever the radio is that they use, and
right.
and that's been kind of a headache. But corals look great, man. So what other
Thank
any
you.
other
Appreciate
any
it.
other cool secrets for the for the masses? Is there anything on the screens that people would want to look at? By the way, I'm showing your screen right now with your store in the picture-in-picture here.
I'll show you back here. One thing that we do is we have our RO unit is actually hooked up to an energy bar. You can see back here the energy bar and the FMM with 2 leak detectors. So what we do is have them set on the floor on these paper towels.
Okay.
So because the floor is so uneven here that I've had a leak just puddle totally around a leak detector,
right,
and just miss it until there was just a ton of water on the floor. So basically what this does is if any of these get wet, it sends a signal to the energy bar, which has the booster pump plugged into it, and the booster pump has a solenoid on it, so it turns off the water supply. So that's
Very
something
cool.
new that I just did that I'm really happy with.
So
I'm
I know
actually
a lot of
flushing
people-
the unit right now. But
Yeah, a lot of people often have questions on how to set up mixing stations in general, and specifically how to take advantage of the Apex gear to do a mixing station. What can you kind of explain to us here on what you've done, both with the mixing station, how it works, and how the Apex integrates into it, other than the leak detection part?
well, our mixing station is going to be a little bit different than most because, as you can see, we have this line on the floor that actually drains down to the basement where we pull up our vans and load up in the morning. So that's just a gravity line, but the rest of it is kind of more of a traditional
Okay.
mixing station. So you could see the pump on the bottom, and it has 2 different valves, and basically just sucks from one and then fills back
So
up
you
at the
flip-flop
top.
back
So
and
if we
forth,
need to,
basically, right? So you work
exactly.
you work on one as salt water as it's mixing and whatnot, while the other one is refilling with RO water, right? And then
Correct. So
and then,
as
and then
one
once
gets
you,
low,
yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry. As one gets low, we start to add salt to the other one. So it's a constant cycle of always having salt water in these 2 vats. We don't go through as much RO water, so we just use these 2 garbage cans. We go through about 50 gallons throughout the shop every day for top off.
Wow.
And then we have this other 50 gallons. Yeah.
So
Yep.
what salt do you use? Do you want to give a shout out to your salt guy?
Yeah, actually we use Fritz salt. It keeps our vats very clean. You could see like no stains or anything like that on here. You could just see the water level. I've been happy with it. I've been using it for, I don't know, I want to say around 5 years. This is actually the first place that the Fritz salt couch was formed. I don't know
really?
if you're familiar with the Fritz couch, but
Out of the
but yeah,
boxes?
yep, the last raceway down there is where the couch was first formed. So
I use Fritz on
now,
my tank as well. I will say that I am not a dedicated salt guy. I kind of float around.
Right.
I'm not. I won't use garbage salt, but I also don't
Yeah.
mind changing salts up too much. So I was using the anhydrous hot salt for a while. I had bought like a half a pallet of that or something. So I was
Right.
using that. When I ran out of that, I actually happened to win a year's supply of Fritz salt.
Oh, wow.
From Sean at
Nice.
at Reef Works up in Seattle, and so now I'm digging my way out of that salt right now. And I like it; it's working great. I haven't had a single problem with it. It mixes the way I want it to mix, and it does what it's supposed to do. So, and when I get through with that, then I have got a deal on the stuff from Live Aquaria, and have their salt, which supposedly
Nice.
is the same salt, but I don't know that it is or isn't. Nobody's given me any official confirmation on that, but that's the
Right.
word on the street.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, that's that's awesome, man. I'm really liking everything that you're doing there. Other Apex stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we carry all the Apex products. We have pretty much everything in stock, minus the Trident, obviously. So it can be tough to come by. But
Yeah, for sure.
I tend to keep it if I have the privilege of getting one.
Right.
I have I'd like to keep them for myself. But yeah, that's pretty much it. On the show tank,
me all sorts of issues, but one of my
Okay.
cameras is, so I had to swap to a different camera. But okay, let's try to see if I can get you back on the shot here. Boom. Take you off of that. There we go. Now my camera's frozen again. I want to be on that one and that one. There we go. Okay, for some reason my other camera froze, but that's why we have backup camera. Okay, so what other tips or advice can you give people with the Apex stuff, Brian?
Another cool thing that we do in the shop is we don't have.
Brian. There we go.
How's that better?
Yep.
I can show you over here on our display tank. We we don't need to use a chiller. We just use a fan mounted in the sump here. I have that plugged into the energy bar as well, and it just cools the sump, and it makes it so we don't need a chiller at all in here. I just have it set, the cooling feature set to work the opposite as a heater would. So just as it blows on the sump, you could see it creates a little bit of a wave there. It evaporates like crazy by doing that, but
yeah, that's actually a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up because this is something that I think almost everybody should have on their reef. A lot of people don't obviously have chillers at all anymore, but a great number of people rely on their their own HVAC to maintain their house and to maintain the fact that, well, I never need to cool down my tank because it always kind of works. But if you don't have a fan available and at the ready on your sump, and you have a problem in your home heating and air conditioning, so you don't have air conditioning on a hot day that you're not home, you could have a real problem. And having a fan there could buy you hours of time to where either your temperature won't climb at all, or it'll climb so slowly that you'll have time enough to get you or somebody else there before the tank overheats. And
Right.
And they're super cheap to do. And in my big tank that I have, everything is down under the house, and I don't use a chiller at all. And even though it's kind of outside, right? It's under the house and outside. But I have a big box fan. So I have an old school giant box fan that sits on the edge of my big sump, and it just comes on when it needs to, and water evaporates off the tank and it cools, and I can get the temperature drop that I need. So that's a great thing. And yes, you can use a wizard in the desktop to set that up as if you're setting up a chiller.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That has helped a lot. I mean, it cools it by, I would say, about 2 degrees. We have on this tank, we have Radions and also T5s up there. So the T5s add a little bit of heat, and you can see I have fans actually mounted on the inside of the canopy too.
But every other thing too you have adds heat too. So if you have a return pump, that adds heat. So
yeah,
there's some nice
I have a
fish in
UV
there,
on here. Thanks. Yeah.
Definitely, some really nice fish. Very cool. So this is Reef Co. out in New Jersey. So if you're in the, as they say, what, tri-state area? But you're in the middle of New Jersey, so not quite, right?
Yeah, we're about 40 minutes from Manhattan. If you know where Rutgers is, we're like 15 minutes from Rutgers. So yeah, about an hour from the Jersey Shore.
Great looking
So
store.
right in the middle.
And
Thank
looks like
you.
you're well stocked with lots of products, which is one of the key things for a store. Is if you don't have the inventory there, how do you expect to sell something to somebody? And it looks like you had skimmers and all sorts of additives, and of course all the the Neptune gear to go along with it. All right, man. So let's see if there's a question or two here. George out on Facebook says, what do you do for preventative programming? I don't know exactly what George means by that, but if you know, you can answer it. If you don't, then George, you need to be more specific. Preventative
I'm not sure what that means.
What that means. Somebody else wants to know what the next thing is for Apex. Ha ha ha. Wouldn't you all want to know? Let's see. A lot of people giving you props out there, man. A lot of people love your store.
Oh, thanks.
There's a lot of comments.
Thank you. I can't see
how great your store is. So that's good.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I can't see any comments, so
we're only going to be on a couple more minutes. If you guys have any questions, fire them away. I know I still got about 60 people on here on the live stream, so don't be shy. Give us a question. Give a question for Brian so he can answer it. And any other cool things that you have hooked up to the Apex? I know some people, for instance, hook the some of the stores, for instance, hook the power monitoring kit in some of their raceways because lights can actually do things when you're not there and you don't know it, which is an interesting thing.
I actually haven't hooked up the power meter yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. I would probably need about 12 of them to really do the trick. You know.
What's interesting is you might not, because you get stray light too, right? So if you know the baseline for what your store is, the whole idea behind it is kind of, when stuff happens when you're not there, right? And you kind of want to know that what's happening. So one particular store owner gave me the situation where he had his, I'm looking at the wrong camera, he had his lights, all programmed, and I think they were Kessel lights, and they had the electronic Wi-Fi control or whatever it was, and he was burning a lot of corals, and he couldn't figure out why. And turns out they were coming on for, 3 or 4 hours or whatever in the middle of the night when nobody was there, and giving extra light to his tank that he didn't even know was happening. So from that point forward, he stuck a power monitoring, sensor in, I don't know about every single one of the frag tanks because he's got a lot of them, but at least in some of them. And now he gets an alert or shuts off that outlet. I think it's something that you could do also similarly, and you might want to do or think about on the if you have any of those radions plugged into an Apex at all, you'd know that too because you can do power monitoring.
Right. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I switched to the EB832 is for the power monitoring.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a nice peace of mind being able to click on that or set an alert to see if you're actually getting power draw from a certain outlet.
All right, here's a couple of good questions. So finally we got some questions coming through. Comic Reef from YouTube says, what extension of the Apex do you feel is the most vital to your operation?
I would say definitely the dose and the Trident combo. You can't beat it. I had top of the line calcium reactors. I had custom regulators, Geo dual stage calcium reactors. They were less than a year old because I kind of did it slowly as we built the store. Mm-hmm. We've only been open for 2 years, so they're very new. And once the Trident came out and I saw how well it worked, I got one, set up the dose in DDR, and I haven't turned back since. I got rid of all the calcium reactors. I actually still have them, but I'm hoping to get rid of them. And went with the dose in DDR. I can be anywhere. We used to have to change, run to the shop and adjust the regulator if we would notice a problem with the pH, and now we could actually see a problem with the alkalinity and just do a manual dose or adjust the dosage. So you really can't beat that.
Okay, that's good. Good answer. Another question for Brian. Do you monitor any of the maintenance client tanks via their apexes?
Yeah, we monitor a bunch of them with the Apex, and with every new installation that we do, we try and explain the benefits of having an Apex for every new system. For example, we have a customer who always has a habit of letting his sump run dry despite having a 10-gallon auto top off. In the winter especially, he doesn't pay attention to it, and he goes through several automatic top off pumps, and comes close to burning out his main return pump, which is plumbed down to the basement. So it's easy to forget. So in the next week or so, we're going to be installing an Apex, an ATK, and then also optical sensors on his reservoir tank. So now we'll be able to monitor if his reservoir tank is getting low. We could say, hey, you got to run downstairs and add another 5 gallons, 10 gallons to your auto top off, and it's going to save everybody a ton of time and headache. So yeah, we
Good.
Absolutely do.
So
One other thing regarding the setting it up for clients is we like to make virtual outlets for the clients too. So if we're doing a water change, we can just flip one switch. We make a virtual outlet called water change, and we turn off all of the pumps and everything like that. So we do that mostly for us,
people,
but if
stop you right there for a second, Brian. For those of you guys
Sure.
out there that haven't experienced the virtual outlet, it sounds like a very complicated thing. Really, what it is you can set up a trigger that is, for instance, do maintenance, and then in each of the devices themselves, your skimmer, your return pump, maybe your wave pumps, all of those things, you can add a line in there that in the configuration for those particular devices that says, if that particular virtual outlet turns to on, do this. It could be turn itself down to 10%. It could be turn it off altogether. It could be turn on a light under the sump. It could be all sorts of different things. It kind of works like a macro in a sense that it can do a bunch of different things. So we've discussed it before on Let's Talk Reef, and it's one of those things that I think we'll just keep coming back to because it's a little bit more complicated for people to grasp, and it is super, super useful. So it's cool to see that you guys have done that too.
Yeah, I was going to say it's actually pretty easy. Like once you do it once, it's I find it very easy to do. It's only a couple clicks, and then you put in that line of program saying if outlet on, then turn this off. So once you do it, it's you can't beat it. It's great for everything.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to close down this one. Thanks so much, Brian, for joining us on this first Control Freak Wednesday. I'm trying to work through obviously how we're going to set up all the screens and make this work for everybody. So thanks for being a champ and helping us out with that. I hope that the rest of you guys out there enjoyed this, and we're going to do it every other week. So if you guys want to be on it, I'm definitely going to be giving out swag and whatnot to the people who who join me, and they get kind of the inside track. I can assure you. Compared to everybody else, it's just the way it is. So come on the Control Freak Wednesdays. Show us what you got. Show us some cool things. You'll get some swag. It'd be really neat if any of you know who this logo is. Hey, put it in the comments. Maybe I can get them to send you some swag because it's kind of a cryptic logo now, and we'll see if anybody gets it. You don't know who it is, do you, Brian?
It's coming in a little bit blurry, so it's hard for me to tell.
Okay. Well, anyway, first one to get it in, I'll tell who the company is to see if they can send you some swag, if anybody recognizes that watched the live stream or even on the replay. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, until next time, again, Brian, thanks for being a great dealer. Thanks for being a champ and being on the
Thanks
first
for
show.
having me.
Absolutely. It's Brian out at Reef Co. out in central New Jersey. If you're in the area.
Greenbrook, New Jersey.
Yep, come and take a look at them. Take care, guys. Until next time, next week, next Tuesday, we've got Let's Talk Reef. So join us for that as well. Take care. Bye.